Good evening and welcome to Tookies. When the people of Walmart speak, I choose to listen. Today we have a piece from noted retail store lurker, Miles MacNaughton. He shared with us this personal story of a brief encounter he had that left a lasting impression. Take a listen and enjoy.
I consider myself a Walmart man. As such, I rarely go to Trader Joe's except for a few things that Walmart doesn't carry, such as lamb leg. And one Sunday I was making lamb korma for my weekly lunches and needed a lamb leg. I wrote down my list in a dollar store notebook I always keep on hand, then drove over to Trader Joe's and went inside. As I walked, I looked at the women milling about in the store. I'm at the age now where instead of looking at their asses or chests, I look at their hands. I look for wedding rings. I still look at their asses, of course, but instead of defaulting to the usual imagined romps in my bed, I picture any woman that catches my eye as a mother to my children, as my future wife. Blonde babies with the girl in the tennis cap, a cup of coffee in the gray morning with that African girl, that soft brunette cuddled in my arms while I'm dying for our show to finish so I can carry her to the bedroom. I think of all the mushy and carnal things you can imagine. I think of how much I want to fall in love with the perfect woman. I think about how much I love women. And then I walk past them like they don't exist. 60 years ago, when a woman caught your eye in the grocery store, it was not a faux pas to saddle up and talk to her. Ironically, I know one guy my age who met his wife that way. She needed help getting something off a high shelf. He's an outlier, though, because women are fiercely independent and skittish, and I'm not a small, unassuming man looking for directions to the bread aisle. The modern understanding for young men is that women control the dating scene. There are rules to follow, and breaking them may get you labeled a sexist or rapist. You can't approach them in public. That's rude. They just want to shop, not talk to you. You can't talk to them at a bar. That's also rude. They're here to drink, not talk to you. You can't look at them. That's ogling. They're not pieces of meat for you to look at. In short, the sentiment is that women are off limits to anyone and everyone unless they come striding up to you first. I confess, this can lead to a defeatist attitude. After all, why bother talking to a woman in public if there's greater risk than there is gain? Better to just pretend they don't exist and carry on your way. As a note of import, I don't endorse this point of view. But the reality is, most of us have adopted this mentality, at least on some level, and it has gravely damaged gender relations and the modern dating scene. Women are demanding, attention-starved fanatics who freely buy into double standards that benefit them and have an infinite wellspring of social cruelty for anyone who catches their ire. Men are egomaniacal pimps with no respect or love for their partner sex, or they are incompetent, slack-jawed losers who default to self-flagellation when held accountable for their careless behavior. Both sides hate each other with a passion usually reserved for religious wars. However, there are rays of hope in any storm. While taking my lamb up to the front, I saw a short line leading to a busty blonde cashier. Being the well-trained pup that I am, I looked slightly to the right of her face and then glanced around for something to read. It's impolite to stare at breasts in public, as they say. Before I pretended to read the signs on the wall, I had noticed that the cashier seemed complacent, almost bored, so I expected little in the way of conversation when the line moved up. But as I drew near and our eyes met, I knew, instinctively, that she liked me. Her whole demeanor brightened. She shifted the weight in her body to pop out one of her hips and let her shoulders fall back to push out her breasts. I saw she had no ring on her finger. She smiled, showing beautiful teeth, and drawled out a very cute, "Hello." All this happened in the span of a second. The blindest man on earth could not have missed it. I understand it may be uncomfortable to be at work, in a customer service environment, and have someone hit on you. Being leered at or getting comments like, "Nice ass, buddy," at the gym is unnerving. But I maintain that you can tell when a woman is interested because she'll make it very easy for you to tell, especially when there is very little to gain from just being friendly. "Dinner?" she asked, taking the lamb and scanning it. A smoother man would have said, "What time?" But I stumbled past the obvious line. "Lunches for the week, actually, I'm making." I juggled responses so as to not insult her intelligence, while also trying not to exclude her from the conversation, while also trying to make sure she stayed interested, while also trying to appear as casual as possible. "Do you eat any Indian food?" She shrugged and grinned. The meat was in the bag, and she was just looking at me. There was no one else in line. "I'm making a dish called lamb korma. It's got—" My eyes flitted to her chest, so I pretended to glance at her name tag and think. She rolled back her shoulders a little bit, and I floundered for a second longer. "Coconut milk, turmeric, cardamom, cinnamon, She did that long ooh sound only girls know how to properly make. Then she leaned on the counter. Her hair was up in a ponytail. I hadn't noticed until she was closer to me. "So you're like a cook. "Well, kind of. I'm self-taught, but lamb korma isn't hard to make. I don't think I could make that." I didn't realize until later that this is a purposefully open-ended line, a perfect invitation for a smoother man to say, "Tell you what, I'll make it for you." She had paused just long enough to indicate she was expecting me to say something very important. You should be aware by now that this exchange doesn't end in two silhouettes riding off into the sunset. And in hindsight, I could have ripped a page from my dollar store notebook, let her linger in anxious silence while I wrote my phone number, and then told her if she called me that I would make lamb korma for her. According to all the contemporary dating rules, that would be the polite way to ask her out. But just like how it's easy to think of all the perfect comebacks to arguments you lost several hours ago, it's even easier to write out how you would ask out a stranger after your opportunity has passed. "Oh, anyone can cook," I said. "The recipe is actually pretty easy. Just some onions and garlic in a pot, throw in the meat, spices, get some liquids in there and simmer." "Yeah, I don't know, I burn ramen. It seems hard to me." She was still smiling sweetly. This was a second chance, another open-ended line for me to grab onto and say, "I could teach you. I can show you. Are you free tonight? I know a great Indian restaurant right down the road." "It's not so bad," I said instead. "I started cooking for myself only a few years ago. People get intimidated by big ingredient lists, but usually the cooking itself isn't hard. Lamb korma is easy because it's all done in a pot. It's just the time commitment, you know." "Yeah, I guess so." She opened her mouth to say something more. She wanted to talk. "Oh, card," I said, taking my wallet out. I laughed. "Yeah, sorry, wasting your time. Card is fine." It wasn't until later, about the 2 minutes it took me to get into my car, that I realized that I had lectured her on cooking techniques and rushed to pay when I could have easily invited her to dinner. The stupidity rose in my chest like a hot air balloon, because even while talking to her I'd realized we liked each other. But I was too afraid to breach the customer-employee barrier with a girl I may never see for the rest of my life. The truth is that I'm a young middle-class American man. I don't have the bravado of what Billy Joel would call a downtown man. I don't have the inherent class and poise of an uptown boy either. Without bragging, I am charismatic, funny, and very extroverted. I've always made friends easily, even to the annoyance of my parents when as a kid I would wander off in the store to talk to complete strangers. The point I'm trying to make is that in Middle America, you're taught that politeness and manners are the most critical thing in any situation, and I was so scared of seeming boorish or uncouth by asking her out that I avoided what may have been a polite decline at worst, or an enthusiastic yes. So, how does the story end? It ends with me driving to Walmart and forgetting about her. Every once in a while she shows up to remind me that I goofed big time, and on those occasions I tell myself that I'll definitely ask out the next girl who shows interest in me. What do I have to lose? According to my breeding, nothing but my respectability. And how much is that really worth to strangers?
That was Ray of Sunshine by Miles MacNaughton. Thank you so much for listening, and if you enjoyed what you heard today, please subscribe and share.